Hey family, it's Danielle, and today we are going to be doing a marriage relationship video. We are going to be discussing how to reset your marriage or relationship for the new year. If you are married in a relationship, thinking about getting into a relationship, just starting a relationship and want to know how you can plan and reset for the new year, then stick around for the video. But before I jump into this video, if you are new here, hi, welcome. My name is Danielle and I am the non-traditional mommy. On this channel, we talk about marriage, parenting, homeschooling. We do vlogs and reviews, basically anything that pertains to life. So if any of that is of interest of yours, I would love for you to consider joining my family by hitting the subscribe button. To the rest of my non-traditional family, you guys are the MVPs and I love you bunches. Mwah. Now, let's talk about resetting your relationship for the new year. It's that time of year, you guys, where everybody is planning and making goals and getting ready for 2022 and trying to figure out what type of goals they want to set personally, financially, for their home, for their family, just all those things. And what I have found in talking to people, my own personal self, is that somehow in the midst of all of that, we forget about our relationships. Rather it is your personal friend relationships, your parent relationships, or your marriage. And today we're going to specifically be talking about marriage and romantic relationships. But we plan and we set goals and we do those things in all areas of our lives, but a lot of times we forget about this particular area. I wanted to talk about some ways that we could sit down before 2022 and reset our relationships, plan out some goals for our relationships, and treat it the same way that we treat our businesses, our finances, and things like that. So let's just jump right in. When you think about planning, say your finances, you're sitting down, you're looking at how much you spent throughout the year, you're looking at how much you saved throughout the year, you're looking at your balances and you're looking at your debt, and you're trying to figure out how to course correct anything that needs to be course corrected. Maybe how you can save more in the new year, maybe how you can get rid of debt, maybe how you can achieve a financial goal, things like that. So you're sitting down and you're doing those checks and balances. This is the same exact thing that you need to do for your relationship. Now, I personally feel that this is something that you should do with your significant other. Of course, you can do it alone if you have to, but if you're doing it alone, then it takes away from the whole entire purpose and maybe will not make it as effective, because when you're talking about resetting your relationship, it's two people. This isn't just a one-way thing. Like, it's going to take two people to do that. So you want to do this with your partner. I suggest that you take a time for you guys to sit down when you're going to be uninterrupted and talk about your relationship. You guys know I've done so many marriage challenges on this channel. If you haven't seen any of them, if you want to walk through the marriage challenges, I will leave that playlist link for you. One of those challenges is having 15 minutes of uninterrupted conversation about anything other than your kids, your finances, or your job. Me and my husband still do that to this day. However, I'm going to say for this particular thing, this is the time that you want to sit down and have uninterrupted conversation about those things. You want to make sure, though, that you are in a space where it is not going to be intense or a hot topic. You want to make sure that this is a time where you guys are sitting down and you're doing checks and balances. This isn't a time to debate these topics or things like that. You're really sitting down and looking at your relationship. Think of it as though you're looking at your books, your checking account, and you're discussing what we got right, what we got wrong, what we want to do differently, what we want to continue to do, and those kind of things. Let's first start with budgeting time for your relationship. This is basically talking about the balance of your relationship. How much time did you and your partner spend together, maybe having that 15 minutes of uninterrupted conversation? How much of your time was devoted to your kids? How much of your time has been devoted to your career? How much of your time was devoted to your parents or devoted just outside of the relationship? How has your time been allocated and budgeted as a couple? You want to look at this in a non-judgmental way. This is not a time to point fingers at each other, but really just a time to talk about, hey, what did our year look like? How much time did you and I really sit and spend connecting with each other? Did we have any date nights? Did we have date days? Did we have vacations together? And if we did, how much of that time did we spend looking at our cell phones during the date? How much of that time did we spend really engaging in meaningful conversation? You really just want to sit down and do a check and balance. Again, non-judgmental. Think about it. When you're planning out your budget and your finances, you aren't necessarily judging yourself. Of course, you might be thinking, I spent how much money this year? Of course, it may be eye-opening, but now you're like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. I need to do something differently. It's the same exact thing here. So the first thing you want to discuss is your time. How was your time with each other as a couple? What was the quantity of that time? And then the quality of that time. Because you can spend tons and tons of time with your significant other, but it not be quality time. For example, me and my husband, we are together all the time. We work together, we raise our kids together, we cook together, we live together, we sleep in the same bed together. We are together literally 24/7, but out of those hours, not a lot of it is quality time. There is very few times in the day that him and I can sit and just have quality time together where we are engaging in meaningful conversations, where we are looking into each other's eyes, where we are focused 100% on what the other person is saying. That time has to be thought out. It just cannot be like, okay, let's just fit this in. Once you sit down and you really look at that, whether it's writing it down, how many date nights did we have, how many date days did we have, how many vacations did we take, just you and I, and then of that time, how much of that time was quality time? This is going to be a good time for you guys to discuss, hey, I want us to not have our cell phones when we go out to dinner. If you find during this time that, yeah, we had 10 date nights, but of those 10, I can't remember what we talked about because we didn't talk to each other. So many times, me and my husband like to play a game, which may not be a good game. Full disclosure, but we enjoy it. It's fun for us. It's when we go out to dinner, we like to spot couples that are engaging with each other. And for us, it's just eye-opening and it's a reminder of like, put our phones down, because when we go out and we're looking around, we'll usually do this while we're either waiting for our table or waiting for the server to get there to take our drink order or whatever the case may be. And we look around and we notice like so many of the couples are just, one might be like this and the other one's, this, or they're both like this, or they're both like, but very few times do you literally see people like look at each other in the eye, maybe holding hands on the table, laughing and just having this engaging conversation. So asking yourself, okay, we've had 10 date nights, but how much of that was quality? And then this is a time to talk about what you guys can do differently. So the next step in this is to now plan out maybe date nights. So if you realize, oh, we didn't have a lot of date nights, let's go ahead and put these things on our calendar now. Because again, this is a time of year that you're planning out your 2022. So let's go ahead and plan time for each other. So maybe you're going to sit down and plan out your date nights. Once you do that, you may want to lay down some foundations, some rules, some automatic rules of what date nights will look like. Again, think about your finances. If you say, okay, I have a goal to save this amount of money, and so what I'm going to do is every week I'm going to pull this amount out, this percentage out, it's going to look this way. You're now setting up rules. You've scheduled this, but now you're setting up rules on how it's going to look. So you want to schedule your date nights or schedule your vacations or schedule whatever it is, but then you want to talk about the rules that come along with that. So maybe it's going to be okay for 2022 when we go on our however many date nights, we're not going to have our cell phones. We're going to tell the babysitter that they have to call a certain amount of times, or we're going to set up some kind of rule where we can put our phones away so that we can look and engage and talk to each other. Whatever it is, if your phone isn't a problem, but it's just finding topics to talk about. Maybe you're going to buy one of those conversation cards so that you can spark a topic. Or maybe you guys are going to say, okay, on this date night, we're going to discuss this. And on this date night, we're going to discuss this. Things like that. You want to just set up whatever kind of rules. Maybe it's we're going to hold hands while we wait. Anything that you feel you guys need to reconnect on. You want to discuss that. So budget your time and then talk about what that time is going to look like when you are together. The next thing you want to talk about is balancing. Have we been balancing being parents as well as being a couple? Because as parents, we all know that sometimes parenting can supersede and just take over our lives. Let me tell you guys, that has been us for sure. You want to talk about parenting. How has parenting affected our relationship? Sometimes, you guys, as couples, we find ourselves arguing about something that really isn't pertaining to us as a couple, but it could be pertaining to us as parents. I know for me and my husband, that happens a lot when it comes to being business partners. We might be arguing about a business matter because at that point we're co-workers, but it somehow seeps into our relationship as a married couple. And so we have really been working hard on separating the two and literally setting time frames for when we are in business mode, when we are in parenting mode, and now we are a couple, because a lot of times those things can bleed together and it can really begin to affect your relationship in more ways than you know. So you want to talk about parenting. What are some things that you and I have gotten right as parents? What are some things that we feel like we want to improve on? What are some things that we want to pivot and adjust? Those kind of things. You want to just really talk about that. You want to talk about what your goals are as parents, what your goals are for your kids. What will success look like when you guys are empty nesters? What are your dreams as being empty nesters? Because let's face it, we're going to be empty nesters one day. So what are our dreams? What are our goals? What are our hopes when we do become empty nesters? What can we look forward to being empty nesters? And what can we do to start preparing ourselves and setting ourselves up to be healthy empty nesters? Would we want our kids to be in a relationship like ours? Would we want our kids to be married to somebody like you or me? These kind of things you want to discuss. What kind of advice will we give our kids if they were in a relationship similar to ours? Those type of things. What do we want our kids to say about their parents' relationship? What type of legacy do we want to leave behind for them? What do we want them to see when they see us? Those kind of things you want to discuss when it comes to talking about parenting. Once you discuss those things, write those things out, make a plan. How can we implement this plan? What will this look like? Maybe it's saying, okay, we're going to every week on a Wednesday, sit down and talk about parenting. We're going to be in parenting mode. We're going to talk about what we've done right, what we've done wrong, if we're on track, those kind of things. We're going to literally be in parent mode. The same way you talk about your finances as a couple, talk about your parenting as a couple. Maybe you're going to schedule family meetings where yourself and your kids sit down and you talk about with them, what do you think about mommy and daddy's relationship? What are some things that you guys enjoy and you love seeing, and what are some things that you would like to see differently? I know, mind blown. Ask my kids about my relationship? No, that they need to stay in the kids' place. Oh, that could be mind blowing. But you guys, you remember, you want to leave a legacy. You want your kids to say certain things. And how do you know if you're achieving that if you're not doing a performance review? It's just like a job. How do you know you're doing your job if nobody is sitting down with you and telling you what you're getting right and what you're getting wrong? And when it comes to being parents and that being our job, guess who is our employer? The child. When parents get that part, when they realize that they're really not the boss, it's actually the kids that's the boss, it'll change a whole lot of perspectives. But that's a whole nother video. Maybe you put it in your planner what days or when we're going to do this. Maybe we're going to do it quarterly. Maybe we're going to do it monthly. Maybe we're going to do it weekly. However you feel you need to do that, go ahead and plan that out now. So again, you want to first talk about your time, then you want to talk about your parenting. Before we go on to the next point, if you are enjoying this video so far and have not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button or give me a thumbs up so that this video will get pumped out to more couples who may not realize that they need to sit down and reset their relationship for 2022. Also, let me know what thing you think is the most important when it comes to planning in a relationship. Let me know in the comments below. Now, the third thing you probably already do, and that's discussing your financial health as a couple. Of course, we all talk about it, but for those of you who are not doing this, sit down at the end of the year and treat your family personal finances the same way you would a business. Think of this in that way. Treat your marriage the same way you would treat your business. So sitting down and talking about, okay, our financial health as a couple. Where are we? Where do we want to go? What things are we getting right? What things are we getting wrong? That same whole routine. And then how we're going to plan for the next year as a couple. This could be planning for vacations together. This could be planning for date nights together. This could be planning for your retirement together, whatever it is. And I think doing this together, because a lot of times these things fall on one person. It could be that the wife or the husband is the one that's solely responsible for the budget, those kind of things. But sometimes when you sit down together and you discuss these things together, it just makes it more enjoyable and it opens up the bridge of communication. So maybe you're going to say, okay, you're going to have the budget or the finances for this half of the year, or I'm going to do it for this half of the year, or whatever the case may be. That may be something that you want to change or try out, because maybe one person doesn't like having the weight of that on their shoulders, or maybe the other person doesn't like that the other person has all of that on their shoulders. Maybe it's not working, and because you haven't taken the time to sit down and really discuss, hey, is this still working for us? I know this is how we set it up 10 years ago, but is it still working today? This is the time to discuss, is this still working? So that is the other thing that you want to discuss as a couple. Now, here comes that topic of intimacy, sex, and all of those things. I have talked tons and tons about sex and intimacy on my channel, especially as a married person or in a committed relationship, and what I think is okay and not okay. I've shared my opinion on this tons and tons. And again, I will leave those videos linked if you haven't seen them. But I do feel like at the end of the year, when you are doing a check-in and a couple reset, this is the time where you want to discuss what does intimacy and sex looks like for us as a couple. A lot of times you get busy, once again, parenting, budgeting, business, work, parents, life, whatever all the things are that are on your shoulders, you get busy with that. And I've heard of a lot of couples that schedule sex. I haven't done a video on this, but I had every plans on because I feel a certain way about scheduling sex in a relationship. But again, that's another topic. A lot of people will schedule that. And for me, I don't necessarily know if I feel like that is the most healthiest alternative to have to schedule something so intimate. But what I do feel like you should do is at the end of the year when you're doing this couple reset is talk about why we were missing each other. Maybe discuss why we felt like we needed to schedule it. What was going on in our lives that we had to schedule something so intimate? What was happening? And then once you start to discuss that, maybe then you can adjust those things so that the intimacy and the connection and the sex comes naturally. If you start talking about we had to schedule it because the kids have soccer and this and that and they're here and they're there and they're here and you're there and I'm over here and I'm taking them and I'm taking that, maybe we go back to the parenting section and we start talking about some things that we can remove off of our kids' schedules and our schedules to free up that time so that we can connect as a couple. Because y'all overbooking these kids, that's another video as well. Maybe I should be writing these video ideas down. That's another video too. You start overbooking your kids probably for all the wrong reasons, but you start overbooking your kids, which now you're overbooked, which now leaves no time for you to connect to your spouse, which means now you're scheduling and penciling them into the schedule. So if that's what it is, you can talk about how to redefine that. If it's something else where it's connecting because we're not spending enough time talking to each other, and I'm a person that needs communication to feel in the mood, to want to have sex, I need this, then maybe you can talk about, again, how do we time and budget in quality time to communicate with each other, which then opens up that door for intimacy. If it's something as simple as co-sleeping, because we've had that issue, then you can talk about, okay, what can we do fun and creative and innovative to be able to get that in because we co-sleep. This is the time to just talk about all of the things that were preventing intimacy or that was hindering it or that would come up and how you can try to prevent those things or course correct those things in 2022. I think that is very important. Coming up with fun, innovative ways to understand what it is that each other needs so that you're not having to schedule it in, because scheduling doesn't always work either. You can look on your schedule and be like, oh, it's Tuesday. I know what today is. But you're like, little Jimmy was at practice and this happened and all of it. Now you're focused on the fact that Jimmy got into it with Rachel and now you had to talk to the parent and all this happened. But now your brain is like, it's Tuesday, which means I got to go home and I got to be prepared. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, that doesn't work all the time anyway. Whereas if you would have just freed up your schedule and Jimmy wasn't at soccer practice or whatever, or maybe dad took Jimmy to soccer practice or whatever the case may be, that removes what issue it was in the first place to where you had to schedule it anyway. I hope that makes sense, y'all. I hope that all comes together. talking about your intimacy and how it got off track, how it's working great, how you can improve it, some things you want to see differently. And by intimacy, I'm talking about not only sexual intimacy, but mental intimacy, physical touch intimacy that does not include sex. So just touching each other, hugging each other, kissing each other, laying with each other, that kind of physical intimacy. The mental communicating, having deep conversation, talking, playing board games together, taking walks together, that kind of intimacy. And then on top of that, the sexual intimacy. But I can almost assure you that if the physical and the mental and emotional intimacy is there, it's going to automatically trigger that sexual intimacy. You'll want to sit and discuss that with each other as well as a couple. Remember, you want it to be where it's going to be uninterrupted and you guys can solely focus on yourselves. You also want to make sure you're in a space to have healthy conversation about this stuff, because you do not want this to trigger any type of arguments or triggers. So you want to make sure that you're able to have this in a healthy, safe way as well. And then you want to be in a time, in a space where you're in planning mode. So you're planning out what you're going to do in the future. So me and my husband have a trip coming up in December where we're going to be going to Alabama, and we have already scheduled that time because we're just going to go alone, just him and I. So during that time is going to be our time to do our couple reset. So we're going to be sitting down while we're out there and just discussing our relationship and doing the checks and balances with each other on how we can reset as a couple for 2022. I encourage you guys to do the same thing. That is what a couple reset looks like. Even come up with a word for each other. You know how we all come up with our word for 2022 or for the new year? Maybe come up with a word for your relationship as a couple. Set goals for your relationship as a couple. Write down, okay, at the end of the 2022, we want to have done 12 date nights, or we want to have went on 3 vacations with just you and I, or we want to save $3,000 for just us, not for this thing or that thing, but just for us to do whatever we decide we want to do with it. Or we want to take 10 walks together, or we want to work out together, or we want to play Scrabble together. Just set some goals for yourselves as a couple. That is so important, is to have goals that you're striving for as a couple that doesn't include having kids, buying a house, getting a new car. These aren't goals that are related to your kids or your finances or your home or things like that. It isn't, oh, we want to have kids, or we want to do this, or we want to buy a house, or we want to buy a car, or we want to do that. That's not the kind of goals I'm talking about. It's goals as a couple. We want to play Scrabble. We want to go on date nights. We want to go on 3 vacations with just us. We want to take walks together. We want to work out together. We want to sleep naked together. Whatever the goals are for just you guys as a couple. It doesn't involve any other thing or person. It is strictly between you guys. That is the other part of resetting as a couple, is setting goals. The biggest thing here, you guys, is to not overthink this, but look at it the same way you do when you're planning your life in general, when you're planning your budgets, when you're planning your goals, when you're planning your job, your career, your business, whatever plans you make at the end of 2021, you just want to do that same exact thing for your relationship, because again, that somehow gets shuffled and mixed and thrown in there versus being very intentional and sitting down and really treating your relationship or your marriage like a business. Because let's just face it, that really is what this is. A marriage is a business, it's an institution. Love is fluent, it comes and it goes, but what keeps the marriage together is the business part of it. It's when you run it and treat it like a business. If you're in your relationship and you're solely relying on the love and the feelings and the emotions, Woo. I wish you all the luck, because let me tell you, those emotions be fleeting, you guys. But when you treat it like a business and you really sit down and you focus on it that way, then when the feelings and the love and the emotions are gone or over here or on pause, you can get through it, and then that love and all of that comes back because everything feels good. Everything is back in balance. Ebbs and flows. So there you have it. That is today's Monday marriage talk or challenge, however you want to look at it, is to sit down and discuss your relationship as a couple, reset, plan it out, budget it out, make plans for 2022. All right, you guys, thank you for watching. If you are still here, if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. I would love for you to join the family and hit the subscribe button. Again, I will leave links to my marriage challenge video playlist here, as well as any talks that I have done on marriage here. To the rest of my family, I love you guys, and I will see you next time.